Hey there, friends. It's Elizabeth here from the Everyday Storyteller, and I am back with week 5 in my digital 8x10 project life. I am using my own template that you can get over on my Patreon shop, and I am also using the Open Story Kit by Ali Edwards. And as always, when I'm working with my project life spreads, my first step is to add in my photos. So I am just going in and adding in all of my photos to the faux pockets. So to each one of those little rectangles that I have. These are sized to not quite be 4x6 and 3x4, but they are the same dimensions. So most 4x6 and 3x4 journaling cards and photos will fit pretty perfectly inside of these boxes. So now that I have all of my photos kind of where I want them, as you see, I am switching around some of them. I'm going to go to my Open Digital Story Kit and I'm going to select these cards that say story on them. And I'm going to actually repeat those journaling cards a couple of times throughout this spread. So I'm sizing them down. I pick this pink one first and then I go to um, a yellow one, and then I also add in this really fun word strip card right there. And I'm actually going to use that as my date card. And then the last style of card that I use from the Open Story Kit is this one that says here for this. And I am going to use that as the home for a story about F1 racing. So that is kind of fun. As you can see, there are only two colors of that story card, and I'm using it in 3 different places. So I'm actually going to go in and recolor one of them so that I have 3 different colors of those story cards. I do that by using my paint bucket tool and just selecting one of the colors from the Open Story Kit and painstakingly zooming in and going in and recoloring each one of those tiny little pixels of yellow to make them that teal color. This is actually not as painstaking as it looks. It probably only took me a few minutes, but just in case that seems a little too daunting for you or you have a card that really doesn't work on, I'm going to show you a different way to do that. So I am going to use my magic wand tool to select all of the white space, and then I'm going to right click on that and click select inverse, which will then give me all of the text. Once all of my text is selected, which means it has all of those little marching ants around it, I'm going to right click again and say layer via copy. That creates a whole new layer that just has that text, as you can see. So I now need to get rid of the white space in between the O and the R. I'm also going to erase that last little sentiment down there that says moments and memories because I don't need to recolor that part. So I'm just going to go ahead and erase it using my eraser tool. And then I am going to get rid of the white spaces in between the O and the R by using my magic wand tool again. And this time right clicking and saying layer via cut, which will cut that white space out of the letters, as you see right there, once you delete that new layer that comes up. Then I'm just going to be able to use the layer style over in the layers panel to recolor the text that I have just created. And my last step is to go ahead and go on the original journaling card layer and erase the story sentiment. So that is what I'm doing right here. That's so that it doesn't have that yellow halo around all of the letters, because the quick wand tool is, or the magic wand tool is not as perfect as every pixel. So it does miss a little bit. So I just went ahead and used the erase tool to erase the original story sentiment just so that it would look a little bit cleaner and not have that yellow tint around it. But other than that, this story card looks pretty perfect to me. So I am just going to go ahead and continue on. This open story kit is from 2023, and I noticed that on one of my journaling cards it actually has the sentiment welcoming 2023 on there. So I just go ahead and use my eraser tool or my clone tool to erase the 3, and then I go ahead and go into my digital stamp stash and get myself a 4, and I am going to choose this sentiment that has the numbers 1 through 5 all spelled out. I'm going to size it down so that the 4 specifically kind of matches the 2020 that is already written. And then I'm going to erase the parts of the digital stamp that I don't need, which is the other numbers and sentiments other than that 4. So I am just very carefully erasing all of that. So I'm just left with the word 4. I'm resizing it so that it fits better on that space. And yeah, that is how I am changing that Hello 2023 sentiment to Hello 2024. And then we're going to go on to another card. So for week 5, I actually had quite a few screenshots that I wanted to include into the spread. So I'm going to be using this right now outside the page protector 6x8 pattern paper. I believe this is from the photography story play kit from last year by Ellie Edwards. And I'm going to isolate one of those phones. So I'm going to do that by using the magic wand tool to select the inside white space of that phone. I'm going to right click and then say layer via cut, and then I'm going to take that layer away so that I am left with a blank space inside of that phone. And then I'm going to take my rectangular marquee tool and just create a square around the entire phone. I don't care if there is a little bit of background included in that. I just right click, say layer via copy in my selection panel, and then there is my phone. With a screen inside that is blank that I can then fill with a photo. And I'm going to resize that to fit inside like that 3x4 space that I have. Again, these are not exactly 3x4. That would not fit in an 8x10 layout, but it is around that same dimension. And once that's done, I'm going to clean up the background just by using the magic wand tool again, clicking on the background that I took from the original pattern paper, and then just saying layer via cut, and that will leave me with just that phone case. So I'm going to repeat that phone case a couple of times throughout this spread. You're going to see that things get a little bit hectic. I'm going to be moving everything around here. So bear with me while I do that. I am just switching around some of those cards and some of the photos so that this spread has a little bit better balance. I really like having things in 3, so I do decide to go ahead and create 3 of those phone shapes. I'm going to go back to that original pattern paper, and I'm going to create a template for myself to add in my photo. I do that just by isolating the inside of the phone and then using the paint bucket tool to color in with white the sentiment. So that gives me a white background that I can then use to create a clipping mask for my photos. You're going to see that in action here in a second. I do make it a different color other than white so that I can actually tell on some of these phones if I am in the correct space or not. But now I'm just going to upload some of my screenshots to this Photoshop page. I do that just by dragging and dropping them into the correct layer. So I have this one of an Instagram screenshot, and then I try out this photo that my husband took of the night sky, but it was too dark, and you ended up not being able to see the stars, which is the whole point of the photo. So I went ahead and switched to a different screenshot slash photo for that particular phone. I'm filling this one in with our Starbucks order. And then I am going to switch around this screenshot I took of my Instagram. My husband's favorite F1 driver announced that he was switching teams, so I thought it would actually be fun to include our text back and forth over this. So I went ahead, took some screenshots of that, and then stitched those together so that I could include our whole conversation here. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how I did that. I used the rectangular marquee tool to select the parts of the text that I wanted to keep, and then I am just using the right click and layer via copy or layer via cut, depending on what I'm doing, to kind of stitch those together so that I can fit more of our conversation onto that phone. Um, and I think this is going to be really fun to look back on and kind of see what his reaction to this news was, because it was definitely surprising if you follow the F1 world. So I think it's fun that I was able to add that into my album and have that memory down in this particular week. So once that is done, I'm going to go on to my next card. I decided to switch out that screenshot of our coffee order and switch it out with this screenshot of my pregnancy app from that particular week. And I really liked that, but I then realized that I wanted to tell a little bit of a story about that. So I'm actually going to make myself another one of those story cards simply by using the same exact tools I did before, using the magic wand tool to isolate the story text, and then changing the layer style so that the color would be this lovely light green color. So that is how I did that. And once I am done recoloring those, I move on to create my date. So I'm actually using one of the chipboard circles from the open story kit that says stay open. I really liked the way that the text was just in an outline. But of course, I want this chipboard piece to actually say my date. So I'm just using my paintbrush tool to paint over that stay open sentiment. Then I head into my Google Drive and I am looking for a January digital stamp. Google Drive is where I store all of my digital elements. So any digital elements that I have, I can usually find there. I do end up finding this digital stamp set from Studio Calico. I'm not sure what it's called. I will try to have it linked down below. But I go ahead and create my own month dates. Or month stamps. So I am going in and adding JAN for January and then FEB for February. When you add digital stamps into a project that you know you are going to have to resize, I definitely recommend using that scale panel up at the top. So you might have seen for me, I adjusted the settings as I was importing each of these letters into Photoshop to be about 8% instead of the 43-ish% that they were originally going to come in as. And then that makes it so that all of the letters or all of the alphas are the same size, without having to really worry about trying to make them the same size and getting confused and having some letters be larger and some of them be smaller. This allows all of them to be very cohesive, and it requires very little fiddly work from you, which is always my favorite way to make a Photoshop layout. So once I have my January or JAN and February FEB all situated there, I'm going to go ahead and make them be outlined. So make them kind of have that look of the outline that I loved so much on that original chipboard element. I do that first off by making each month abbreviation its own layer. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of the 3 letters that make up the month abbreviation, and then I am going to merge those layers together. So you're going to see that I highlight those 3 in my layers panel, and then I am going to go ahead and right click on the layers that are selected and say merge layers. And then I'm going to go into my layer style by double clicking on the layer. Then I'm going to change 2 different styles. One is the stroke. I'm going to create a white stroke that is about 5 pixels. And then one is the color overlay. I'm going to make that black. So it literally looks like black text with a white outline, very similar to the original chipboard piece. So that is how I created the date months. I'm going to go back into Google Drive and I'm going to grab my numbers and I'm going to follow that the same technique that I used previously to make these numbers look outlined as well. These numbers were already black, so when I choose to change my layer style after I merge each date together, I'm only going to be adding in a stroke of white, 5 pixels again, and then I am going to size these numbers down so that they fit better inside of my faux chipboard element, and that is my date card finished. Well, actually not quite finished. I'm going to add one of these digital heart chipboard pieces. This is also from the Open Story Kit, and I'm going to add that to that middle area between my January date and my February date. I just like adding a little bit of an extra embellishment because that is what I normally do on my physical spreads. So I kind of like it when I can mimic that style in my digital spreads as well. So you'll see that I add in that little heart. And my last step to complete this layout is just to add in all of my text boxes and fill them in with journaling. So I am just using simple rectangle text boxes by dragging my cursor over the size that I want it to be using the text tool. And next up, we're going to head into Bookright, and I'm going to show you what this layout looks like as its finished state. So all of these digital layouts will be printed in a Blurb book at the end of the year or the middle of the year, depending on how many pages I have by the July timeframe or the December timeframe. And I am uploading them as I go into the Bookright software so that I can see kind of what they look like and how they're going to look printed. So that is a look at my week 5 spread. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.